Okay, we will call to order the November 2022 meeting of the Sycamore Township Zoning Commission. My name is Roger Friedman. Mr. Neese, if you would take the roll.
Ms. Flanagan.
Here.
Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Mr. Friedman.
Present.
Mr. Roos.
Here.
Mr. Swanson. Here.
Okay, thank you. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from both the September 12th, 2022 and the October 11th, 2022 meeting. Anyone have any changes that they need to bring to our attention on the minutes that have been provided to us?
On September 12th, I think in item 3, I said that we had not received the August minutes rather than reviewed them. So the word should be received rather than reviewed. And on the top of page 4, I'm pretty sure Bill Neese said that it was the letter of intent was not binding rather than bidding. Is that right?
That would have been true. Yes.
Okay, those are going to, sorry, I didn't get this in with Angel.
Okay. And we had a limited crowd or limited staff.
We did.
One of the few members who was here there to make a motion to approve the minutes from September the 12th.
Move to approve the minutes from September 12th as modified.
And I was here, so I'll second.
Very good. All in favor? The three of you.
The three of you.
Mr. Swanson was here that evening.
Yes.
And then with regard to the October 11th, 2022 minutes, any changes?
Yeah, I had a few that I sent to Angela, and it looks like she's picked them up already. So,
I already made them.
okay. Mostly.
Nothing further?
Clarification type of stuff.
Okay. Any motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Barrett, second by Mr. Bruce, all in favor? Aye.
I'm abstaining since I wasn't here.
Okay, thank you. All right. No old business before us this evening. Moving on to the new cases. First case up is case number 2022-15 PH. The applicant is Robert Lucky Group LLC. The property location is 11501 North Lake Drive, 7903 and 7915 East Kemper Road. The request is for a PUD2. Miller, if you want to give us an update on that.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. This case is pertaining to the North Lake Commons development by Robert Lucky Group. This is just a quick little graphical reference to it. There has been some minor changes to the site plan we'll get into in just a moment. But we're looking at the vacant land at the corner of East Kemper Road and North Lake Drive. The property to the north which is the Kids First property, is 00 planned office. To the south is part of these office building sites to the south, which is light industrial. And then to the east, we have vacant land as part of this office complex, which is also zoned light industrial. And then these properties, both March 1st Brewery and the properties fronting on Gold Coast, those are also light industrial. Right. The site is approximately 4.7 acres with just over 431 feet of frontage on East Kemper Road, as well as almost 321 feet of frontage along North Lake. The existing ISR is essentially 0 on this site as it's undeveloped, with a proposed ISR I'm gonna say a maximum of 68 because of the site plan changes. But the applicant is requesting this PUD 2 approval for the purposes of constructing a mixed-use development. Building 1 is proposed as a mixed-use building with office and retail store area, totaling 11,800 square feet. The 2 buildings to the south, each also 11,800 square feet, are proposed as office, primarily medical office. And then finally, this northeastern corner of the site is being set aside for a future cafe or restaurant use with a maximum floor area of 4,400 square feet. Okay. And I guess I'm going to deviate off this plan for just a second here. As you can see, this is an updated site plan that we received today. We knew it was coming. Essentially, the applicant is trying to rework the site to still accommodate the same uses. The buildings are essentially the same. But I think the goal is to ultimately get rid of the underground detention and bring that up to and utilize surface retention to try and reduce the infrastructure costs on the site. It's fair to say. Okay, so the entry off of Kemper Road that has straightened out. It's led to a slight reduction in parking spaces. I think originally we were looking at, based on a maximum, I'm jumping right into parking here, but based on kind of the most conservative estimates of use, the applicant was looking at 187 spaces required and was providing 216. There's now they're proposing a mix because they are expecting to get a mix of both standard office and medical office, especially in that front building with the retail sales. And the new calculation is showing a reduced requirement of 183, providing with the site providing 202. So we still have a good surplus of parking for this site. Not too worried about it, but it's certainly something to take into consideration as we move forward. Most of the plans that I'm going to be showing you tonight are gonna have the original site layout, but those are the major changes. Here. I'm going to jump around just a little bit. There we go. Okay, photometric plan. The photometric plan was as a preliminary plan provided as part of the original review. There are a couple of what I'll call hot spots on this that do spill over the property lines in excess of our maximum of 0.5. I want to say we're looking at possibly along this northern property line. We've got a couple of hot spots, and then also here, kind of at the southeastern corner. So we'll work with the applicant to either shield these, get this redesigned, but nothing insurmountable. Okay. Landscaping on the site is pretty good. There's actually some existing trees that I believe some of those will be retained, but good buffer to the east. I'm sorry, excuse me, to the west, and good streetscaping to the north and along North Lake. So second here. The signage plan is another issue with this. This property is currently zoned. Light industrial. And while that's good for the variety of uses, because all of these uses are principally permitted in the F district, the F district actually has reduced signage permitted compared to even our office district. So because of the nature of this site, I'm actually recommending that as part of this PUD, in lieu of the light industrial signage provisions of section or chapter 13, we actually apply the office provisions of chapter 13. This would allow for multiple freestanding signs, one at each entrance of the site, as well as storefront or office front signage for each of the units, which would be more typical in a development of this nature. Those provisions are not part of the of your typical F district, so we'll just need to apply those as a condition of this. Okay. Let's see. Dumpster enclosures. There are 3 dumpster enclosures located on this site. 2 of them would be fine, no issues. There is no detail on the enclosure, but so long as they meet the standard requirements of being of a masonry material and having the opaque wood gates, those would be fine. So we can work with the applicant on ensuring that those are approved. The final or the third dumpster enclosure does not actually meet our standard setbacks. So this would be the one issue that we can work with the applicant on to either move this or get a variance for. The restaurant pad is a conceptual layout. So provided that they meet the standard setbacks for the district, that this could be reworked as part of a minor adjustment. And I think that is the plan moving forward. So I think the big focus right now for the applicant is the first phase will be these 3 buildings with the restaurant pad being contingent upon finding the proper partner. Okay. Let's see. As far as outside agency comments, we received standard comments from Hamilton County Engineers Office, other Hamilton County agencies. The big item is actually from the Sycamore Township Maintenance Department. The road superintendent has several items, but the one that would be a condition is that we would like to see the construction of a 7-foot sidewalk at the face of the curb along the frontage of East Kemper Road. Actually, let me go back to the other set here. There we go. This is actually our assistant superintendent's penmanship here. So what we'd be looking at is 7-foot sidewalk at the face of the curb along the frontage of East Kemper Road, with a curb ramp at North Lake Drive to cross Kemper. Sidewalk and curb ramp should follow ODOT and Hamilton County standards. Sidewalk shall be constructed through the proposed driveway. Okay. And with that being said, staff has the following comments. Staff is generally favorable to the applicant's proposal. Should the zoning commission recommend approval to the board of trustees, staff makes the following suggestions for conditions. 1, Actually, I apologize, the consolidation, there is no consolidation here, or none needed. So item number 1, which is now 2, or it was 2, it is now 1. Site shall not be utilized for telecommunication towers in the future. 2, site shall not be used for off-site advertising signs in the future. 3, a variance shall be granted for dumpster setback as part of PUD 2 approval, if that is warranted by, if that is an actual request of the applicant, and if that's warranted by zoning commission, that's a discussion topic. Let's see, 3, a variance shall be granted for, let's see, I just said that, I'm sorry. 4, a variance shall be granted for outdoor lighting intensity per photometric plan as part of the PUD 2 approval. Again, that's another discussion topic if necessary. 5, signage shall be designed consistent with section 13-11 of the Sycamore Township zoning resolution. All other provisions of chapter 13 signs shall remain in effect. And then 6, applicant shall construct a 7-foot sidewalk at the face of curb along the frontage of East Kemper Road with a curb ramp at North Lake Drive to cross Kemper. Sidewalk and curb ramp should follow ODOT and Hamilton County standards. Sidewalk shall be constructed through the proposed driveway. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Is this considered low density or moderate or what?
This is low density.
Low
Yeah.
density.
Yeah.
The ISR is at 0.68, which is higher than our highest for moderate and high density planning. I'm wondering about that, but also does the 7-foot walk affect that at all? Or is that counted in the ISR or not?
It's not currently calculated in the ISR, although I think the final design of the sidewalk, that will probably end up out in the right of way. So
Okay, so not counted in with the.
I would not count that against the applicant.
And would the decrease in parking spaces help the ISR?
Which is what, yeah, so I'm saying 68 as a maximum.
Should we say 0.65 instead as a maximum? That's a point
No,
of discussion,
I
I
wouldn't-
suppose, but
I don't think that's necessary. If the applicant can rework their site to provide additional parking, I want to give them the opportunity to do it. I would certainly set a maximum ISR and hold them to that. So I would just keep it at 0.68.
and is this part of, I couldn't pull it up on my maps at home, but is this
Right.
part of our Kemper Road corridor that we're looking toward the future? Was that part of that
It
policy?
is part of the Kemper Road corridor, which does propose office uses, ideally at a higher density, but that's not what the market's driving right now.
Okay, thank you.
That's questions too.
Go ahead. Jim.
Skylar, I sent you a note earlier today regarding the drive-through and recalling some discussion with land use plans in the past, and understand that that's not in the current language.
Yes, I replied to that. I did verify that is not in the policy area requirements.
Okay.
There's no prohibition in this area for drive-throughs.
Okay, but what I went after your response, I went back and looked at it myself again. Within the office classification, that's not office zoning, this is office use.
Right.
John, there was a reference to restaurants being allowable, but within an office building, not necessarily as a freestanding building like this. And that to me goes along with sort of the intent that I recall years ago on the earlier land use plans. So it's kind of carry forward as a minor usage allowed, or envisioned, I guess, in the plan
Sure.
versus a freestanding building here, which I know was discussed a lot back when the plan was first evolving. So I would tend to think that that clause that restaurant allowed in an office building, which would say follow the intent of what we were after, and that generally would not include the drive-through. But I've open
Yeah.
for discussion on that, but I think the point was that they were, at the time, they were looking for a lower intensity versus a drive-through, which is gonna create a lot of, it could create a lot of traffic here. And
Sure.
I think that was not what the land use plan wanted originally and as it evolved. So,
All right. Congestion is certainly a concern. It's especially important down in Kenwood. The SBI overlay district
Right.
tries, at least makes the attempt to prohibit those, even though
Right.
we have numerous drive-throughs. The idea being that it's not going to be a drive-through, I don't know, a drive-through dominant use. We allow for these ancillary drive-throughs down here moving forward.
Mhm.
Kenwood corridor, the Kemper corridor does not have that. I know what you're talking about. I didn't check that before this meeting, but I think that has to do more with the office zoning district, right? Is that in those provisions?
No, it was
No?
described, I think, within, I thought it was within the land use plan.
Okay,
I
all right.
can't remember something.
Okay. My issue that I go back to is, so this is a relatively low density site. We're not talking about multi-story office. I could certainly see, the internal restaurant kind of being a benefit as part of that. Since this is more of a campus style, I guess, office park, and because the underlying zoning district is going to stay light industrial, and that's a permitted use there,
Mhm.
it didn't raise any flags for me, I guess is the way I should say it.
Well, thinking back to as
Mhm.
that land use plan evolved, I think the concern was that this could evolve down Temple Road.
Right.
And if we do put something here now, that starts to create a precedent for
Yeah.
future.
I wouldn't want to break Kemper Road out into a lot of little, 1 acre or less lots, like we have, and have a drive-through at every one. This is an integral part of an office park, or of a mixed-use park, I guess is the best way to say it. It doesn't have its own dedicated, entrance. It's not, it's not Tylersville and Westchester, where every site has those issues. I think the stacking and congestion that a drive-through would potentially have is mitigated somewhat because it can be managed internally to the site versus stacking out onto Kemper.
Okay, that answers it for now. I think the board
Yeah.
can discuss that as we
Sure.
get further into. Okay, thank you.
Tonight, there are 2 members in the
Yeah,
public.
any other questions for Skylar?
So just to. And what Richard's bringing, all of the proposed uses are permitted
Yes, sir.
in the district. Including the freestanding drive-through restaurant.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, sorry. There, our applicant is here. There's Doug Smith from Abercrombie and Associates, as well as Mr. Scott Lucky, who will be discussing their proposal.
Okay, anyone here from the applicant, if you wish to say anything, if you'd come up to the podium, give us your name and your affiliation and any comments that you wish to make.
Good evening, Scott Lucky, owner of the Robert Lucky Group. My address is 8825 Chapel Square Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio 45249. Want to thank Skylar for putting this together. Presentation wise, some of the things we talked about, I'm going to come back and talk about some of the ideas that were discussed. But overall, really excited about this project. This would be our 5th project in Sycamore Township. We've done several of these office style complexes. This one's a little bit different with the mixed use thrown into it. But one of the things, Skylar, I did not see, and I know we kind of brought on to it a little late. We're still working on designs of the buildings as well. And I didn't know if you had a copy of that building design. I wanted to be able to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I do.
But Wanted to go further into, our office developments. We just did 2 across the street in front of Kids First. Very single story ranch residential style buildings. Those 2 obviously sold out really quickly. There's still a high demand for our office, even with COVID and the type of multi-story office buildings. We're still seeing a lot of people downsizing into our type of product. With this project and the ability and the opportunity that came up to possibly develop it, there was a couple things we were looking at before we dove into just all office. A lot of things that I heard from some of the people were amenities and the opportunity to have things in that area. And so if you look at the style of the building that Skylar has, this is building 1 on the site plan. Kind of gives it still our residential style office complex. Looks like the building's across the street, but a little bit more of a retail feel. We look at this as maybe boutique stores versus office. There may be some medical users that would be a part of this building, but all the buildings would have a similar look. All 3 buildings. This is outside the outlot. So ranch style, single story, potentially broken up to 4 users per building. Over on the 2 buildings across the street, those were actually 1 user per building. So larger users actually took that up. But I see on this site probably smaller users where we can break them up. And majority of these are owned. They're businesses that are buying these and then they're potentially leasing it back to their own personal business. That's one of the things that we've been very successful with. So you don't have a lot of rental properties here. It's business owners who own it, have ownership in the park. And then it's all managed through a professional association as well. And that would also be with the outlot building as well. The ideas associated with the outlot and I think I mentioned earlier, one of the things I had to do to go through approval before I even got to you guys is actually there's an HOA of the office buildings behind there. Philip Edison, Lyondale, and then Equistar Chemicals are all part of an HOA back there. So they all have control over what gets approved and not approved on this site. So I actually had to present this plan to them to get their approvals before I actually could come to this board to show them. And all 3 of them signed off on the plan for approval. They liked the fact that we weren't building multi-story office buildings competing against them. But then also, roof lines are lower. They still have visibility in the back. And then the outlot on the corner was a big thing. They all talked about an amenity and having amenity in the area. And so that's where the idea of coming up with a restaurant / cafe. And I say that to a point where since I'm the developer of this, I'm pretty particular about the type of use that I want to see go on the corner there. I was thinking more of a cafe type lunch, possibly. There may be a restaurant for a dinner use, but ideally, I'm not looking at fast food, and fast food's not something I think should go there. So ideally, I want to see a coffee shop, cafe, an amenity for the area, for the office buildings. So that's one of the important factors that we're looking at anytime someone asks us about the site. Questions, Skylar, you brought up in regards to the plan. We are making some small modifications. We slid the buildings down away from North Lake. We are trying to get the underground detention basin to an above ground. The cost today to develop, as everybody is probably aware, it's everything's significant. And one of the things, these chambers and these underground detention basins are very costly. So the ability to try to get that above ground might take up more impervious surface area, but at the end of the day, I think there's a benefit both ways and trying to help make this project successful. What else did I have? But the biggest thing is the square footage is going to stay the same. So that's the one thing as we're moving things around, sliding things. We're not changing the square footage. So everything that you see today was something that we're asking for approval. The lighting plan, Skylar, just looking at it, most of the lighting I do see sheds onto a little bit of Kemper Road, a little bit of North Lake. I don't have an issue if the board sees that I have to try to get that away from the roadway. I think at the end of the day, I think it's gonna be a benefit in lighting up the park and making it look nice. I know it's not shining on a residential property, which is usually a big case in our cases when we're putting these office parks in. So, if the board feels strongly that I need to get it out of Kemper and need to get it out of North Lake, I'm happy to do so. So I'm willing to work with you guys on that. Dumpster designs, all of our dumpster designs on all of our projects are brick surround dumpsters with wood gated fences. They are similar to the buildings, so they blend in with the type of buildings and the brick that we're putting on these buildings. So they do have a very nice design that kind of blends in with what we're building as well. And then the question on the drive-through too, one of the things too, I thought was important to keep a drive-through available. I'm not saying that a drive-through is going to happen on this site, but one of the things I've noticed with COVID was a big aspect of the ability, if we ever have a situation where people can get their, I would call it their amenities or their food or whatever it may be via the drive-through, which became a very, very big thing for businesses. So I always thought, I think it's important to be able to have that ability. And again, I don't see it as a high traffic fast food rest site. But I thought it was important that as we're thinking down the future to give businesses the ability to not sacrifice in case we have another pandemic like we've had in the past. And then the other thing was the sidewalk. Skylar, you mentioned sidewalk, and that's something I'd like to work with the township on. That is about a $50,000 price tag to put on top of everything that we are putting into the site. Again, not the township's problem, but again, I think it's an amenity that benefits the township, and I'm happy to work with you guys on trying to create a travel path from right now. I don't think there's anything on the other side of North Lake, but I assume the plans are someday to try to make connectivity with everything in the.
We actually have, I'm gonna say, I can't remember if it's $1 million or $2 million in federal funding right now that's in the pipe to start connecting Kemper Road up to School Road, via Salzman, and then actually all the way down to Snyder Road. So it's part of the new policy, if you will, to require sidewalk along Kemper. So we did it just recently with the new campus. That's the daycare center that's north of you and your other project.
Gotcha.
So we can certainly have a staff meeting about it after, in between zoning commission and board of trustees.
Yeah, just opportunity to talk about it and just
Mhm.
at the end of the day, trying to work together on making it work. So with that being said, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Want to have any questions, Mr. Lucky?
Yes, so the detention, I understand the desire to make that surface detention. Do you know where you're going to try to do that?
So if you look at the restaurant, so that building, that site plan has changed. So that one actually is the one that we're working off of now, where the drive comes in straight off of Kemper.
I'm sorry, this is the plan that you're working on? Or
Yeah,
Not the landscape plan, the last plan. That one right there is the one that we're currently working to make the infrastructure and everything work. Right. And that's where I think the outlot's going to change up a little bit, just based off the location of the building and the outdoor patio. But ideally, it'd be to carve up a portion of that outlot. It's going to become part of that above ground detention system.
Gotcha. So between where it's labeled proposed outdoor patio and the drive that comes in straight.
That's correct. That's correct.
So if you can fit it there, you don't need to lose it more parking to. accommodate that extension.
Yeah, it was just so it'll modify probably the entrance to the outlot coming in off from the office part. But ideally, I'm gonna rely on the engineer to tell me that he can make that work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the issue that's preventing you from meeting the lighting plan as specified, requiring a variance?
There's really not an issue at all. It's just a matter of the photometrics of the design of I think the height of those light fixtures, which I believe would have been up to 15 feet, were spread out. When I got the lighting plan put together, we noticed it was there. Typically, if it's on a residential, back into a residential, we immediately would turn around and change it. I didn't feel like it was going to have a negative effect on the development and on the streets. So at this point, we left it, but we can easily put deflectors in to keep the light away from the roadways.
It was really more, when I put that in, it was really more of a comment going black and white against the code. It wasn't a concern of mine. So that's, again, I put the language in there if we want the variance, but again, that's what this conversation is for.
Mr. Lucky, with regard to the detention pond, are there any issues moving it above ground with Public Works? Maybe Mr. Smith can answer that question better.
Yeah, I can take, Doug, I mean, you might be able to relay a little bit more of the technical information of it, but as far as what we've done in the past with our majority of our projects have above ground detention systems. So as far as there's just maintenance, there's more of a maintenance plan on those that have to be associated with the HOA and maintaining those. The volume calculations will make that, pretty large basin. But as far as the outflows with Public Works, they're going to work with Doug Smith on the volume that's needed to make sure it's flowing appropriately.
Any other questions?
Yeah, regarding the restaurants, I brought up some concerns before you came to the podium. You mentioned not considering a fast food restaurant. If we put that in a condition, would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, I guess is there a definite, and I try to look it up.
That's the other half.
I try to figure out what the definition
Yeah.
of fast food is. Because, I say it's like McDonald's, no, it's like Burger King, those type of restaurants is not what we're looking for.
How about Starbucks? No, I asked that seriously because I drive past Montgomery Road a lot,
Yeah.
and they're constantly backed onto Montgomery Road with the traffic going in.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'm like a Panera. They moved out of the one down the street. I don't think this is their target, but I think they'd be surprised the amount of people that gather in that space, especially with Kids First across the street. There's a lot of activity back and forth between that area. So a Starbucks ideally would be great. I don't see it ever taking place on here.
But I think it would be a detrimental use, quite frankly, because they do back up cars.
Yeah.
They're not moving through fast enough.
Right. Yeah, and I think we're set up more appropriately than the one on Montgomery Road is for something like that. But I'm looking for a mix of coffee shop, cafe, more lunch services for the amenities in that area.
And then I guess along same lines, the construction style and materials of that building, would that be comparable to the rest of the office park here?
It would, the brick would be the similar style brick, color brick. I'm looking for uniformity throughout. The roof might be, it's going to have a residential appeal to it, but it may end up being a flat roof, but it'll look more residential on the peaks as well.
Okay.
And that's something that, I want to make sure I work with the township on as well, make sure it looks good.
Okay. And then the dumpster location, as Skylar pointed out, that's not in compliance right now. Could that be repositioned?
It can. I think there's a lot that's going to take place over on that
Right.
lot
Yeah.
to kind of modify. What is requirement?
So it has to have the same minimum setbacks as the principal building. So right now it would be considered being in the front yard. So you'd have to push it. I want to, off the top of my head, I think it's 30 feet back from the street. It might actually be 40. But essentially you'd be moving it behind the building somewhere. So you're looking at it, pushing it somewhere along here or tucking it in behind here.
Right. That's hard to say at this point. Yeah, ideally, I mean, if I could move it in a different location and it could work, I have no problem doing that.
So is that building you've referred to it a couple of times as an out parcel? Is it going to be a separate parcel of land?
It is an out parcel. It will be, but it will be part of the HOA. So whatever.
Right, but it would be a separate tax parcel?
That's correct.
So when that project is more known, does he have to come back in through the process again?
It depends on how zoning commission and board of trustees approve this. If you're approving maximum ISR, minimum parking requirements, if you're approving a restaurant use on this site, theoretically, the applicant can come back in for a minor adjustment, provided those changes or that final site meet the conditions of the approval, that could be approved administratively. So you're kind of earmarking this site for this cafe restaurant. Okay, so we would be able to switch it out for a bank, or something like that. But if you don't give a variance for the dumpster, when he comes in potentially for that minor adjustment, theoretically, he's going to have to meet both the standard conditions of the zoning code, as well as any special provisions set within the PUD. And that's really how every PUD works. As an example, CIG has probably had, well, at least two off the top of my head, two, if not three minor adjustments since their time. So minor adjustments to the footprint of the hotel that didn't impact setbacks. Minor adjustment to signage, I think, or rather the facade that didn't impact the standards that were set. So just little things like that.
Yeah, ideally, to get the approval for a restaurant to know that one can do that, or a cafe, would give me the ability to actually be able to move forward with people to say, yes, we can do that, but there's going to be restrictions on how we have to format that. Where ideally we'll have to come back in. Ideally, we're going to be making a couple modifications to the site, but keeping the footprint at a max what it is today. If not, it might actually even shrink because of some of the things we have to do for the detention basin. So there's a chance it actually might get smaller too.
So some of the questions that have been asked, if there are things that are concerned about, like will the building look like the rest of the buildings, or is fast food, however that gets defined, not permitted as a cafe, we have to place those restrictions on the PUD today. Or
That's
say they have to come back in.
Not only that, if it's treated as an outlot, the detention pond is an integral part of the rest of the development.
Yeah, you can handle with easements and things like that, I guess.
Sure, but it's all going to be tied together.
Separate out that parcel for future considerations.
There's really nothing stopping these sites from being subdivided. CIG subdivided after approval, as an example. That hotel pad is going to be a separate, but each site is still beholden to the original PUD. That it's an integral part.
Okay,
I mean, I like the project, this is guardrails on
Mhm.
it to define so that it doesn't end up as McDonald's on the corner there, or something like that, which I think is not everybody's vision for the development. It sounds like it's not your vision for it either,
Not at
so
all.
hopefully we're all on the same page, but feels like we need to put some
Restrictions
guardrails
on
on it.
okay. There's no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Lucky. Anyone else care to speak for the applicant? Anyone else here wish to speak on this application? Okay. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move that we consider case number 2022-15 P2. And I guess take a stab at initial conditions prior to discussion.
Okay.
Generally following staff's recommendation where items are renumbered, beginning with item number 1, sites should not be utilized for telecommunication towers in the future. Item 2 is stated. Item 3 would include a variance regarding variance. Personally, I don't like that one. I'd rather strike that for the moment. And I'd like to strike item regarding the outdoor lighting. So I would have item 3 would reference signage complying with section 13-11 as stated by staff. Item 4 would be applicant shall construct 7-foot sidewalk as stated by staff. And I will add item 5. If I could. I'm gonna stop right there. We'll have discussion.
Okay.
And then we can go into any other conditions.
Anyone
I'll second that
second that? Okay.
application or a motion to consider the 4 conditions on 2022-15 P2.
Great. Okay, any further discussion, Mr. Meese?
Yeah, so Rich, just to clarify, the scratching 4 and 5, your intention would be that they would have to comply with the setback for the dumpster and they would have to comply with the.
Yes. Yes, yeah.
So just no variances.
And I think, if they come back for minor modifications, if there's some reason that dumpster needs a variance, something like that, maybe we go later date. But right now, until that site is defined, and personally, I don't think it should be out along North Lake where it is right now anyhow, but maybe if it's a minor encroachment versus a major encroachment.
I think you're right. I think if they end up moving the retention pond,
Mhm.
they should be able to maybe move that dumpster back
Mhm.
in that area.
So are we going to address the restaurant?
Well, yeah, I would like to come up with some language regarding not permitting fast food usage. And I don't know how, Bill, you may know better on that, but it would be something along the lines of a high volume restaurant. And
Feels
then
like there's a lot of blurred lines.
I know.
There's uses now.
high volume and then dine in versus majority would be dine in or something along that lines. And I don't know, Skylar, I don't want to.
Right, yeah, so, well,
Go back to your comment. But
I'm
guardrails,
literally
we wanna-
Googling definition of
Okay,
fast food
okay,
right now.
all right.
So, I mean, and before we make a motion on this piece of it to add this, I would recommend we invite the applicant back up as part of this discussion. But
Okay.
I'm thinking if you don't want this to be a drive-through forward business, perhaps saying something, where, cafe restaurant where revenue, revenue comes from a maximum of 45% drive-through or something like that, that at least shows that there's an emphasis on dine-in. even Panera, it does a very healthy drive-through, but that's not what they're known for. We can, I don't know if we can say objectively, but we can certainly make a subjective distinction between McDonald's right now and Panera Bread.
Mhm.
And if the goal is Panera Bread, then I would say then you're probably looking at something that's at least more than half dine-in revenue. That would certainly exclude McDonald's or your other, drive-through heavy, the fast food. That's gonna kind of prohibit your Burger Kings, your McDonald's. I don't know how much more refined you want to get with prohibitions. Or draw that line. I want to give them the flexibility to have a viable lot here and to have, because then you're going to have to come back in and I'm going to have to somehow objectively, show me that the revenue from this business is not going to be, more than, more than 49%, drive. We're getting into muddy waters
Right.
here.
Yeah,
So
very muddy.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think it would be a bad idea to allow the restaurant with a drive-through and leaving it undefined. I mean, I would prefer that we take out the drive-through component. It's a restaurant, can have carryout. You don't need the drive-through if what we're aiming for is primarily in-restaurant dining. The whole idea of a drive-through is fast food,
Mhm.
quite frankly. And if we approve it with allowing fast food a drive-through, we're inviting a fast food restaurant. You'd have a hard time keeping someone who has a business and wants to go in there with a fast food restaurant. If we've already said you can have a drive-through.
I think the problem is that we see a lot of restaurants, even what I would term, predominantly, sit-down restaurants right now. A lot of them want that supplemental drive-through. Tzatziki's in Kenwood. Even Graders, the new Graders wanted a drive-through. It's not always stacked, out to the road, but there are times where it's more viable, and it certainly, makes the site more marketable, which is why I was thinking of some kind of percentage cutoff.
I like your thoughts, Roger. The other way to do that, I guess, is focus on the menu offerings. Because then you can almost.
To what extent can we dictate what goes there? I mean, are we
Well, so,
getting
and
into
you don't want
some
to,
control?
you don't want to dictate the user.
Right.
We're dictating
Exactly.
use, so.
You get
I
into
would ask the
trends.
applicant if they have any thoughts on it. Yeah.
So our thought is can we get the restaurant cafe use approved with the site plan, but then knowing that we can come back in front of, if we need to come back in front of you guys for approval, that's fine. But at least I'm getting the use approved at this point.
I think that would be a better approach to it, quite frankly.
The
Only coming back when you know who that person.
the only hard part is then now we're gonna have, you guys feel like it's like who's right and what restaurant should be allowed in that scenario. If I bring in a Panera and it's like, well, we didn't think Panera was gonna be the right fit. And it's like, well, I feel like that's the hardest part we have with this. And I do understand that. And I understand the drive-through concerns. The issue I have is I see more and more restaurants are gonna need drive-throughs. The more information I'm getting from businesses is that they're going to more touchless deliveries and points, and it may not even be, maybe like cafe style serving back, out deliveries outside, and
I think
that's.
part of the problem is we don't know exactly what this parcel is going to look like. If we knew more about the final presentation and who you were considering, it might be easier for us to say yes. But right now, we're looking at traffic backing up onto either of these roads and creating a problem. I like the idea of the drive-through. I even like the idea of a Starbucks, which I wish I had right now.
I guess that's it. That's just the hardest part because I don't know who then to be able to market to. And go back to the plan, then it's like, okay, I don't know if it's gonna work or not, and then we come back and we go, but we're looking for approval of the use, which Skylar, if I'm correct, is this is actually an approved use in the zoning district, the underlying zone.
It is, yeah.
And so now I'm going back. I get it from your guys' standpoint. It's like, hey, I'm dealing with an HOA too. And that's one of the things that I had to sell to them is like, hey, I'm not putting a McDonald's here. I'm not putting an Arby's here. I'm not putting, and that's one of their big things. They don't want that. They want an amenity. They want a coffee shop. They want a cafe. And they want a nicer restaurant where people could sit down. But if I was to come in, or I wouldn't do it, but if McDonald's came in and for some unknown reason I'm not here, and someone's like, hey, we're gonna put a McDonald's here, well, they're gonna have to go through the HOA still too. So there's a lot of hurdles, and just obviously this as well.
But we don't control the HOA.
I know. But the use itself is, I guess, what I'm going for, and that's what I'm trying to get approved is actual use.
And I hear you, and I, at least from my standpoint, I think the cafe restaurant concept there is a good idea. I think, put a break on the drive-through right now. And, we look at it at a later point in time when you've got some interest in it, and you know who that might be. And, you may find the restaurant cafe that, pleases your HOA and pleases the rest of the people who are in there, as well as, obviously you've got to be drawing from a wider net than just what's in that development.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking as we're talking about it. So if that's the case, if I kept the restaurant cafe use there, pulled the drive-through out for now, if they did want to drive through, then we have to come back in for approval of that drive-through.
Yes.
I
You don't?
I know in other developments, sorry,
What's your name, Doug?
that's Doug Smith with Abercrombie and Associates, 8111 Cheviot Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45247. The other thing that maybe we could just throw in there is maybe we don't do just throwing this out there. I haven't had a chance to discuss it with Scott, but maybe it's menu board, no intercom system. I know there's other restaurants that we've done in Deerfield Township that they've regulated the drive-through use with that condition. Can't think of the name of the restaurants. They're Deerfield Township. Anyway, where people can call in, just drive up, pick up their order and go. And it's not like they're placing their order, at the drive-through lane. They're just there to use it to pick up and go. And it's just a thought. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think there's a McAllister's that does that. Is that one of them?
It could be.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, there's a, BW3. So yeah, there's a McAllister's in Fairfield Township that we use. My family uses the pickup. It's a pickup window, not a drive-through. So maybe that's the distinction that the commission would be agreeable to.
I'm open to that, as far as putting that in for at least approval at this time. And then if it was like, hey, here's the business, and here they want to go for a full driveway, but it's drive-through, but it's not the type of business we're talking about, we're coming back in. Getting that approved.
I think pickup only without a menu board or order.
Would prevent backup on
Yeah.
the backup
That
vehicles.
seems like that
Definitely
might have a.
viable solution.
May I ask what the problem we're trying to address? Is it a traffic problem on the street? Should a certain type of restaurant go in versus a different brand of restaurant?
So I think what I think concern would be peak stacking. So if we're talking about a high volume, fast food style restaurant, even though there would be a lot of stacking internally, that could still cause traffic congestion on Kemper Road. So,
Yeah, because the idea of a coffee shop, the coffee shop does come here, not a Starbucks, but different coffee shops. They're gonna need that,
they're gonna need that menu
the
board.
menu intercom to serve coffee.
And I'm also thinking of it regarding the whole quarter down there, that whatever we're doing here could have ramifications further down. That was the intent of the original land use plan, was to modify what happened along here. So to me, I think that what I'm hearing, the intent is an amenity for this development right here and neighbor itself. It does have a little bit of peripheral draw, but not a huge peripheral draw from here versus something that would say draw more traffic in at peak hours where people are driving several miles maybe to come to that location.
I still think we'd be better served by allowing the cafe / restaurant, but eliminating the drive-through aspect right now to consider it later on, depending upon what kind of development it might be.
Even without a restriction of pickup window only.
Yeah. That's my view. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other? Do we need to include a condition that the ISR needs to stay under or at or under
If-
0.68?
If
Or is that
if
just-
we're approving a site plan at 0.68 today,
Then it
that would
doesn't
be,
need to be.
that would become the threshold.
Okay,
So
no need for a condition.
they could come in at 0.63, no problem, but
So
Are you adding another?
Yeah.
condition?
And the drive-through window.
If I could,
You
Or-
know,
or Jen-
Modify. your
yeah,
motion.
Sarah, are we through on discussion or should I go further?
I think they're.
Okay, okay. All right, I'd like to modify my motion to include 2 additional conditions. This would be condition 5, that the cafe restaurant building number 4 shall not include a drive-through facility. And item number 6, that the cafe restaurant building number 4 shall be constructed of similar materials to the other 3 office buildings on the development site. And
Okay.
just as a note, I said similar materials, that leaves room for the roof to.
for the purpose of discussion, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Ms.
So that I understand. They can come in with a cafe restaurant that has no drive-through and has similar materials to their buildings. And Skylar can approve that without it coming back to us. If they want to come in with a prototype restaurant that has signage and materials that are not consistent with their building, they have to come back before us. Or if they want to drive through or
Right,
any kind of pull-up window, they would also come back before us.
right.
So we would look at the merits and the entire design of the out parcel to see if it's consistent with our vision.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Misha, want to take the roll on the motion before us?
Sure. Ms. Flanagan,
I,
Mr. Merritt,
Aye.
Mr. Friedman,
Yes,
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well.
okay. This will go before the trustees.
yes, sir. Board of Trustees should be the first meeting in December. I'll say tentatively 6 p.m., but we'll send you official notice of that. Trustees will probably set it tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just found that out. 2 weeks ago. That's why I was surprised when I saw it.
Working for a different company.
Okay, moving along. Next item on the agenda is case number 2022-16 PH. The applicant is AG Ohio Construction Services. The property is 11918 First Avenue. And the request is for a PUD 1.
Yes, sir.
Skylar?
Okay, this one is a somewhat unique proposal. I don't know if we've really looked at this type of use before. So what I have in front of you, just a quick aerial. This is 11918 First Avenue. It is currently a single-family home in the middle of the E retail district. So it is actually to the north, south, east, and west, is surrounded by the E retail district. This area was it was rezoned several decades ago, and I think there was. I don't know. I think there was this vision for some type of neighborhood or transitional business that never got off the ground, and then they started building houses. So I haven't found any historical approvals for allowing that. I don't see any PUDs from the county, but these sites were subdivided and these houses were placed. So this is e-retail as well, but it's owned by Sycamore Schools.
No, that's Princeton.
That's Princeton School. Thank you. Okay. So that's really just vacant lot right now. Okay. Let's see. All right, so shoot, let me get my bearings here. Okay, so the applicant is essentially proposing to expand the home. They're looking to do an addition, which will encroach into the side yard setbacks. There's a requirement for 10 feet side yard setbacks on each side. This house is approximately 7 feet from each side yard. So there will be a requirement for a variance to the side yard setbacks. Additionally, the reason for this change is there's a I believe elderly family member, that's safe to say, that will be moving in, and the addition is what I would define as an accessory apartment. Accessory apartment is a conditionally approved use for residential properties. It is still considered a single family dwelling because the accessory apartment is subordinate to the single family home, and one of the two living areas is the actual dwelling unit of the owner of the property. So it's not a multifamily, it's an accessory apartment, and like I said, those provisions are there. So because this is e-retail, we're coming in as a PUD because PUD single family is permissible in the e-retail district as a PUD 1, and this board is then granted the authority to both approve the variances and the conditional use. So this was essentially the easiest singular path forward for the applicant to achieve their goals on this site. So we're looking at an addition on the rear of the home, as well as the expansion on the south end of the home for the accessory apartment. There we go. So you can see the two areas of improvement on the site. This will, if approved, the applicant will continue to live in the home with the addition of their relative. So I realize I'm kind of glazing over a lot of these issues and kind of simplifying it for our purposes here, but this is actually a pretty straightforward case once you dig into it. Typically, this is something I'd be talking about with BZA, but we're talking about this in the context of a PUD one. So
Neighbors get notice on this kind of a change.
neighbors get notices on these, just like any other development.
And
We've
not get
received
any calls.
We've received no comments from anyone on this. So with all that, very basic comment from the engineer's office, the internal staff and other departments reviewed it. There's no issues. Like I said, if this were in front of the BZA, the setbacks are not actually changing. It's just a continuation of the existing encroachment. Those variances are typically approved. And then the conditional use, it's a use that is approved conditionally. So as long as you check the boxes and you meet the additional conditions, then it would be permitted. If that makes sense. So this applicant is in fact checking all the boxes on those. So with that being said, based on the information submitted, the proposed plan meets the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution for the administrative PUD1, and the variances required for the construction of the proposed improvements are minimal. The accessory apartment is a conditional use that meets requirements under section 17. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions. 1, a variance is approved for side yard setback encroachment. And 2, a conditional use is approved for an accessory apartment pursuant to the requirements of section 17. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Skylar, the residential properties to the north and northeast and all that, are those zone C or what are they? Do you know?
If we keep going further north, I'd have to pull up the
They're smaller lots, that's my,
yeah. So as the majority of the High Point subdivision is zone C.
okay.
Okay.
So this parcel, that 7-foot setback, if this was a C parcel, it would be compliant, is that right?
It would be more than compliant.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a 5-foot setback versus
Okay.
7.
Mhm.
So I'm not seeing, and to your point, I'm not seeing anything that would necessarily be out of character with the rest of the, the subdivision.
And what about the rear yard? Is that, even that would be in compliance?
So
C,
they do actually enjoy a benefit from the E-retail district on this, where they have a 20-foot setback versus a 30.
30 would be on C,
30 would be the C.
and what are they providing?
They are providing
25
it's
for.
25 for. So, but because it's the retail district, there's no variance required.
Any other questions?
Was that building originally in compliant with the setbacks on the sides?
No.
Couldn't have been.
Like I said,
Yeah.
So as
So
it
it was
stands right
built
now,
with a variance.
as it stands right now, the house is legal non-conforming. I have no idea how it was approved. I have, the records on this are, confusing to say the least. The original subdivision was platted in 1894 or 7. So I went back and I tried to find the records on this. I did find the zone change, but like I said, it's been a while since I've looked into this. It was several decades ago, and it really it seems like it never got off the ground. There are some neighborhood uses. You can see there's a kind of a little convenience mart here that actually has a drive-through. I believe further to the north, there was a small gas station at one point. Yeah, a little service station. But this first block of First Avenue and then a smaller portion of Second Avenue was actually rezoned. And then nothing substantial ever came from it. And now it's almost like the neighborhood is kind of retaken over that area.
If there's anyone here from the applicant, if you want to come up to the podium and give us your name and anything you might want to add.
Good evening. I'm Greg Manhart with AG Ohio Construction Services. Thank you very much for having Stephanie Blakeman, who is the homeowner with you tonight. My address is 4457 Bethany Road, Mason, Ohio, 45040. And also I'd like to thank Angie and Skylar for walking us through this situation because it's been quite an experience at that. So with that, do you have any questions of me before I?
Anyone? Mr. Roos? Again?
Nope.
It's Stephanie's father passed away some years ago here, and now her mom wants to move closer to her and her brother. So that's the reason for the expansion on the house, and she's wanting to get it done as soon as possible. So any help from you would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we consider case 2022-16 P1.
One of you two.
It says
Be
P1.
one.
Okay, on the agenda. I think you two.
Oh, I
I'm sorry.
apologize. It is PD1. Sorry for that typo.
I'll second it.
I apologize.
Okay, any further comments?
Looks like a nice design to me. When with everybody's people getting older and needing to find locations to live, I can understand the need for this.
Steve, when you read your motion, did you include the two conditions?
Oh, yeah, I should have done that.
Go ahead.
I will amend the original motion to include the staff comments for the two additional conditions.
I'll second it, please.
Okay.
All right.
Only thing I have to say is I wish one of my kids would offer up, part of their house.
Unfortunately,
I don't see that on the horizon.
Hold your breath, huh?
Anyway, Space, you want to take the roll?
Sure. Ms. Flanagan.
Aye.
Mr. Barrett.
Aye.
Mr. Friedman.
Yes.
Mr. Roos.
yes.
I'll vote yes as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thanks for jumping through all these hoops with us, guys.
Okay,
But we've actually worked with this contractor, the property owner, for a number of months, because when they came to us with this project, it was really a head scratcher. It's like, okay, how do we get everything? We tried to do it administratively for them, and there was no path forward that really made sense. On top of that, this lot actually had two parcels in the rear that they were part of vacated alleyway that was counting towards this whole lot, and one of those pieces was not conveyed as part of the rest of the house. It still had the old owner's name on it. And I'm like, well, before you come into zoning commission or anywhere else, we got to get this cleaned up. So they had actually, they found the old owner that was in a different state, got that consolidated with the rest of the lot. So it's a nice clean package for you guys tonight, but Angie worked with them for hours and hours, days and days, and finally we got something that kind of made sense to get in front of you guys. So thank you for that.
okay. The trustees have anything they want to tell us?
Not tonight, sir. I will tell you, there is interest from Landmark Recovery to modify their plan and reapply
Wow.
Again.
again. Yeah, so that may be on the horizon. Same site, just different configuration. Some significant modifications to the site to meet
Concerns?
to an attempt to address concerns. Let me put it that way
Okay,
for now.
fair enough. Do we know if we have anything for December meeting right now?
As it stands right now, nope. The deadline is Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, deadline's Thursday. That may be when we see an application from Landmark. We'll let you know.
Okay,
They're hoping Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
okay. Nothing further. Our next meeting is scheduled for December the 12th, but then it's dependent upon what we get in. So, any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.